Hey, welcome to the Tom the Bomb Sports Talk, the fastest growing sports show uh, in the world. It's Monday, November 18th, uh, and this is the day that the Lord has made. We will rejoice and be glad in it. If you don't think it's a great day, just try missing one. And we, LOVE, love sports on the Tom the Bomb Show. I'm your host, Tommy Wood, and we got another fantastic show for you today. Here on the Tom the Bomb Show, we bring together my two passions, the Word of God and sports. We bring together the excitement of sports and strengthening our faith through the Word of God. So, in every episode, we fill it with insightful sports commentary from a Christian perspective, reminding you that how we win and lose in life truly matters. Our mission is to spread the word of God, and that's what we are called to do. Every show reflects our commitment to sharing biblical truth, offering hope and encouragement through scripture. If it's relevant to the people, it's relevant on the Tom the Bomb Show. We address significant social problems and provide guidance that is based on Christian principles in order to assist individuals in navigating the challenges that life presents. As usual, we want to start off by thanking God for all the wonderful things He's already done for us in 2024. Our theme for this year has been the year of fixed purpose. And Proverbs 4:25 says, "Set your gaze on the path before you with fixed purpose, looking straight ahead, ignoring life's distraction." Keeping our eyes on the path and looking straight ahead is what's going to allow us to ignore life's daily distractions. The Bible tells us that the enemy comes for the word immediately. It's not Tom the Bomb. It's not you. It's the word of God that the enemy comes for immediately because he doesn't want that word to take root in your life so you can become a true disciple of the Lord Jesus Christ. Hey, gang, our show is live. The number here is 301 655 9992. Or you can join us live on Facebook and you can catch us on YouTube at Tom the Bomb Sports Talk and on Spotify in your car, your smartphone, or your iPad under the same name. You can also contact us by email at info@tomthebombsports.com, or you can go to our website at www.tomthebombsports.com to connect us and pick up your Tom the Bomb gear. Hey, we don't have trivia questions today, but we do need to address our poll question from last week. And our poll question from last week was, are the NFL games on the level? Are there some games uh, are there some games that are being fixed? Are some teams getting, I don't know, preferential treatment? And the answer to the poll from your viewers is yes. 58% of you believe that some games and teams get preferential treatment and that the games aren't on the up and up. Uh, that's actually higher than what I thought. Because here's the deal. If and like I said to you last week, people's perception becomes a reality. Okay, and you know, if you have that many people that think the games aren't on the up and up, that's kind of shocking to me. So that's a very very interesting result from the poll question. I really wasn't expecting it to be that high, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. Our poll question for today is: are the Detroit Lions the best team in the NFL? And I think most people think they're the leading runner for the NFC, but are the Detroit Lions the best team in the NFL now that Mother Wiggs Kansas City Chiefs are no longer undefeated? That's our poll question for today. Let us know what you think. Comment on Facebook. Shoot us an email, text. Let us know what you think on this poll questions. Are the Detroit Lions the best team in the NFL now? Okay. Hey, gang, what are we watching tonight? We got Monday Night Football, 8 p.m. Eastern on ESPN. The Alice Cowgirls are taking on the Houston Texans. Remember last week we talked about, hey, is the Cowboys ever going to win another game? Well, we're going to see tonight. They'll take on C.J. Stroud and his Houston Texans, and it'll be interesting. Like I said, it's tonight at 8:15 p.m. on ESPN. That's what we're going to be watching. Hey, gang, all gas and no brakes. It's time for our East St. Louis Flyer update for the third week in a row. Let me just do this first. Let me do this first. Okay, there we go. All right, yeah, for the third week in a row. Go ahead. For the third week in a row, the Flyers are in the playoffs again. They're working toward their 11th state championship, and they came up against Glenwood. And it was, I was reading an article about the game, and it talked about that the Flyers uh, saute onto the field, and they didn't understand it's just swag. That's what it is, and they're dominant, and Coach Suckett has them on the right path, and it's we'll see. We thought that they would win it all last year, and they end up losing in the state championship. So we'll see. But the Flyers are rolling. Let me just they put up 50. I think it was 58-14 is what the score of the game was. And hey, at least Glenwood scored. They had pitched two shutouts in a row in the IHS Class 6A state championship games. Well, not state championship game, but the playoffs, yeah, playoffs. Uh, so the Flyers rolled over Glenwood 58-14. And hey, Glenwood was actually able to get on the board and actually score some points. So the 14 points that the Flyers gave up was actually the first points that they've given up in all of the playoffs. They had shutouts in the first two rounds of the playoffs, and they did actually give up 14 points in this game. And Glenwood had a good season, but man, they were going up against a heavyweight in the East St. Louis Flyers. Man, when you don't see that type of speed on both sides of the ball, man, you can't coach speed, man, and speed kills, and that's just what the teams don't get. If they don't get to see, you've all the teams high school, they'll have that skill player, that one skill player at the quarterback position, the running back position, or the wide receiver. They have some speedy defensive backs, but when you start getting linemen, running sub 540s, and at 300 pounds, when you have everybody running, 4.5s or better, that you just can't deal with that because, like you said, the speed kills, especially on the defensive side of the ball, and that's what the Flyers are really, really excelling at. Of course, they're of course 58, this week, 67 last week. Of course, the offense is pouring it on, but with this team, you're gonna score on offense and you're gonna score on defense. But hey, in any kind of sports activity, if the opponent cannot score, kind of hard to win. Okay, so that's where we're at. So let's move on to our next game. Our next game, we were actually going to go college, and Coach Deion Sanders and his Colorado Buffaloes, they are now controlling their own destiny. They're now 8-2 with a win over Utah, and it's interesting because last year Coach Sanders had a lot of critics, and all of a sudden, mum's the word now. we with all the teams that were so all the critics, I want to say, that was coming out against Coach Prime, and he can't even do anything in the he can't even do anything in the, with the Buffaloes in the Big 12, and now they're actually on pace for possibly making our way to the Big 12 championship game. I want to give a shout out to the coaching staff. That defensive line play is just, well, not just the defensive line, but the offensive line there. Because here's the thing, with Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders, those are two of the best offensive players in all of college football. Both legitimate Heisman candidates. And if Travis Hunter doesn't win the Heisman, that's just going to be crazy if he doesn't, because there's no doubt he's the most talented player in all of college football. But you got those two guys highlighted. Of course, Travis goes both ways, but the key is keeping on offense, keeping Shedeur upright. Stopping him from getting so many sacks. If you think about it, last year Shedeur was sacked almost 60 times last year, and it's not like Shedeur is not a mobile quarterback, but he was sacked almost 60 times. So if Colorado could just cut that down to 35 instead of 60, think how many more chances Colorado would have. And that's what they've done. So the offensive line has stepped up and done a better job of protecting them. And then more importantly, the defensive line. The coaching on the defensive line, football, simple game is won in the trenches. You got to run, you got to block, you got to stop the run, you got to be able to run. Well, not necessarily, because we know running the ball isn't Colorado's biggest suit. But the way they pass the ball is almost like a run. We talked about speed earlier with the Flyers. You get these guys into the flats and just get the ball to them in space and let them do what they do. And that's what they learn. They're doing what they do. Coach Prime is set to where he should be moving on. Well, I don't know if he wants to, but with the work that he's done and proved himself at Colorado, with some of these big jobs opening up in college, I don't know why Coach Prime wouldn't be at the top of everybody's list. Of course, there's going to be open. There's rumors about Deion Sanders coming and coaching the Dallas Cowgirls, but Deion has said that he doesn't want to coach pros. That you can't tell grown rich men what to do, is what Deion says. But you know what, man? Money talks, and sometimes they might go Godfather on him and make him an offer he just can't refuse. So I don't know if he will jump to the NFL, but with these high profile jobs coming up in college, whether Deion wants to leave Colorado or not, because it seems like he's got a pretty good thing going on there. But if these jobs, high profile jobs, open up, Deion should be one of the number one candidates there. So we'll see. Hey, let's move on to our NFL games now. And we're going to get my main man, Felix Bassey, here to join us. Okay. All right, man. Hey, Felix, you there? Felix, you there?
Yes, I am.
All righty. Hey, we got Felix Bassey joining us. Okay, so let's start off. We got Felix for a short time, so we're talking about the Washington Commanders versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And Felix, why don't you go ahead and give us your thoughts on this Thursday night first place battle in the NFC East against the Eagles and your Commanders? What's your
So I have
take?
a hot take. This is a bit of a theory, but I think Jaden Daniels' rib injury was a little more serious than they told us. Because here's the thing: rib injuries, they slow people down. They can also, because this is center of the body, right? It's connected to just about everything. I could also say that maybe his accuracy is a bit off because he's not throwing his arm right. So I'm noticing he's missing passes he'd usually make. You're talking about someone who set NFL, not rookie, not seasonal, not franchise, but NFL records in accuracy, who's missing some throws. You saw the same thing in the Steelers game, not to mention during the Steelers game, you saw him putting a hot pad over his ribs. So again, I think that's the number one thing people aren't looking at. Another thing, I'm looking at some of the route selection. Like I noticed that first off, we were doing an amazing job. I have to give credit to Cliff Kingsbury drawing up the plays that were giving the offense the opportunity to perform as it did. But in the last two games, I'm not seeing the options that are short. It's either to the sticks or to the running back. There's nothing in the middle. So that's another concern. Thirdly, I think this is what cost us the game. And this is a long shot here, but on fourth down, with a chance to just take the lead and keep going with the game, they go for it, despite the fact that they played a game that gave them no sign that going for it would yield a positive result. It's not 4th and 1; it's 4th and 2.
Right.
And I think that if we just kick the ball, the game could have just carried on. But no, the Eagles saw that opportunity, started with great field position, and Saquon Barkley, he took that quarter and took the game.
Well, Felix, I think despite a two-game losing streak and diminishing results from Jaden Daniels, I think the Commanders have a two-game lead for the NFC East third wild card. And again, I say to you, Commander fans out there, calm down. The glass is half full; it's not half empty. I think some critics might say, well, you've only won one game this season over a winning team, and Jaden Daniels is regressing in his running and passing. Well, I would say that the glass is half full, Felix. If the season ended today, you're in the playoffs. Playoffs? Hey, nobody's talking playoffs for the Commanders back in August. You know what I'm saying? Look, they've lost two close games to two really tough-minded teams in the Eagles and the Steelers. Who knows? It could be a Pennsylvania Super Bowl, But at 7-4, they're in control of their own destiny, and currently the seventh seed with a soft schedule down the stretch. They've got the 3-6 Cowgirls coming up. They got they got the 2-8 Titans, and then they've got the 4-7 Saints before they get the Eagles again on December 22nd at home. By that time, that game could be for first place again in the NFC East. We don't know what's going to happen with the Eagles. If the playoffs started today, the Commanders would be right back in Philly playing the Eagles again, a team that they very easily could have won. And keep in mind, they led this game late into the fourth quarter. Now, it's time to see how your Commanders are going to handle some adversity, Felix. We find out what they're made of over the next 4 weeks. I don't really want to get into the specifics of the game because the bottom line to me is that the Eagles are more experienced and not necessarily better than the Commanders. As a young team, the Commanders have to learn how to win games like this one and the 1-point loss to the Steelers. What I'd like to say about the Eagles is, unlike the Baltimore Ravens, they figured out how to run their offense through Saquon Barkley with 26 carries for 146 yards and 2 TDs. And Felix, I felt like Washington held Barkley in check for most of the game, for sure, for 3 quarters. But there's something about those last 10 carries in the fourth quarter. If Saquon Barkley gets 16 carries instead of 26 carries, I think the Eagles lose this game, period. So kudos to the Eagles for sticking with their bell call. Coach Dan Quinn, you got to kick that field goal, man, and go up by 1, man. And I don't want to hear that your main kicker was hurt. What's your take on that, Felix?
Right, because you look at the NFL today, it's not kicking a field goal that's 50-plus yards. It's not really a major thing. It's kind of expected out of a modern-day NFL kicker. Now, I will say this. If you're going to miss a field goal, yeah, it's more likely to be a 50-plus yarder.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, generally speaking, the fact that he made an NFL roster as a kicker, and you now have metrics to tell you how far the kick would have been good from, even if it's 40 yards. They can calculate, okay, this would have been good from 50 or whatever.
Right.
He's made those kind of kicks before. And so, honestly, to your point, no, I don't think the injury was an excuse. And on top of it, I mean, I said this before. It's a concerning trend in the NFL. You have this metric system that's calculating the risk, and if the risk is 30%, they're saying that's good enough for you to go for it. And like I said, put it in real life. If you were to make a risky decision and they said you have a 30% chance of success, would you do it? And this was a risky decision in real life. So take it out of the context of football. It just makes no sense to me.
Right. I agree. You got to kick that field goal and go up, 13-12, whatever it is, and put the onus back on the Eagles. Because like I said, right up until the fourth quarter, they had done a really, really good job of keeping Barkley in check. But like I say, man, those last 10 carries are crucial. I'm getting ready to kill the Ravens in the next session on this. Hey man, I know you got things you got to do, man. I appreciate you coming on. We appreciate your take, and I know you're going to always be able to give us some great insight on your Washington Commanders because we know you bleed the burgundy and gold.
All right, thank you.
All right, take care.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that's our main man, Felix Bassey. Let's move on to our next game. Okay. And our next game was the Baltimore Ravens versus the Pittsburgh Steelers, and I think that's the Ravens. Let's move on to our next game. We got to, let me do this first, man. We got some technical difficulties here. Work with me. So now Lamar Jackson is 1-4 against the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's why I told you all last week, don't be surprised if the Steelers win this one. Derrick Henry had 13 carries for 65 yards, 1 TD, 1 fumble loss. 13 carries, 65 yards, 1 TD, 1 fumble loss. Saquon Barkley had 26 carries, 146 yards, and 2 TDs. Now check this stat out. In every game that the Ravens have won this year, Derrick Henry averages 22 carries per game. In every game that the Ravens have lost, Derrick Henry averages 14 carries or less. Coach Monken, let me yell at my guy, Coach Monken. Hold on. Okay, you got to let me in. All righty. All right. So here's the deal. Uh, I got to talk to my man, Coach Monken, for a second. Coach Todd Monken. You know I love you. You know I love you. Okay. But here, like I said, under 14 carries, Coach Monken. Like I said, I love you. What's going on? Who's calling these plays? Who's running this team? Is it you? Is it Coach Harbaugh? Or is it Lamar Jackson? These are valid questions, Coach. Let's go back to the AFC Championship game against Mother Wiggs, Kansas City Chiefs. After leading the league in rushing, you put up a whopping 6 yards rushing in the AFC Championship game. Really? Really? Boy, that really makes you scratch your head. Now, I'm no Rhodes Scholar, but my Football for Dummies book says if I win with 20 plus carries with Derrick Henry and I lose with anything less, come on. I mean, like I said, you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar, for that. I mean, come on. Like I said, it's football for dummies. Derrick Henry gets 22 carries, we win. Derrick Henry gets 14 carries or less, we lose. I'm like, can somebody explain it to me? There's there's a line in the movie. Explain it to me like I'm a 2-year-old. And like I said, these are valid questions. Like I said, going back to the AFC Championship game, there's a saying: you have to dance with the one who brought you to the dance. And that's just not what's happening with the Ravens. And it's not just me, but it's got everybody scratching their heads. Like I said, if it says we win with 20 plus carries with Derrick Henry and I lose with anything less than that, then I think we should give it to Derrick Henry 20 to 25 times per game, i.e., see the Eagles' offensive strategy. Give it to Barkley, give it to Henry, and let them eat and bring the W home. Things like this is why our poll question results from the fans think the NFL is not on the up and up. Okay, not Tom the Bomb Natwood. That's what the fans feel from our poll question results. And like I said last week, that your perception becomes your reality, and it doesn't make it true because that's what some fans think. But now you have a good portion of your fan base that feels that way. With that being said, why would anyone be betting on professional football or professional sports in general? We've already seen the NBA players involved with illegal activities and so on. So why did the Ravens even bother to sign Derrick Henry if you're not going to feature him? Let's talk about the game time 2-point conversion towards the end of the game. Derrick Henry is not even on the field, not even as a decoy. That's like having 2 guns going to a fight and leaving your big gun at home. Well, that other gun had better work, and it didn't. I'm sorry, but that's terrible coaching, Coach. We talked about Saquon Barkley last 10 carries in the fourth quarter deciding the game against the Commanders. Derrick Henry had 0 carries in the fourth quarter yesterday against the Steelers. Pittsburgh wants to know, who do they send their thank you gift basket to for that no carries for the King in the fourth quarter? Okay, that's his specialty. Fourth quarter carries. Let's go back to the 2-point conversion. With Derrick Henry on the field, the defense has to play from the inside to the outside. With Derrick Henry off the field, everybody knows that Lamar Jackson is getting the ball. Now you can't set the edge on the defense. You can set the edge on the defense and play from the outside in. So the Ravens run that terrible play to the outside. The better coached Steelers are waiting on it, almost like they knew what the play was going to be. I saw no other options on that last play, not even a possible pass option. Okay, let's end on this and go back to my Football for Dummies manual. Chapter 1, verse 6 in the book of I'm Not an Idiot, it asks, if you need 2 yards and I'm going to run it, should I give it to Lamar Jackson or Derrick Henry? Oops, there's a cliff note here that says, please see Super Bowl, Patriots versus Seahawks. Give it to the Beast Mode or let Russell Wilson throw a pass. Hey, this Football for Dummies book is really, really good. I wonder who wrote it. Well, I can tell you who should go out and buy it. Okay. Hey, kudos to Coach Mike Tomlin and his coaching staff for running circles around John Harbaugh and his coaching staff. The Ravens have been a better, more talented team than the Steelers since 2020. And yet the Steelers have won 8 out of the last 9 games. The way Aaron Rodgers owns the Chicago Bears, the Steelers own MVP Lamar Jackson. I love their philosophy against Lamar Jackson that the Ravens, the Steelers are daring Jackson to beat them with his arm. And he hasn't been able to do it. I don't want to hear the best kicker we've seen in the last 20 years miss 2 field goals. Lamar has to play better against the Steelers. It's a divisional rival. You got to do better, Lamar. The key is to use Derrick Henry. The Steelers just play smash mouth football against the Ravens, and the Ravens keep flinching. The Steelers are more physical than the Ravens. Russ Wilson wasn't great, but he continues to make enough plays to get the win. Running the ball and stopping the run is simply one team imposing their will over the other team. It's mano a mano. You got to beat me in the trenches. It's what the Steelers are saying to the Ravens. All right, let's go to our next game. We're talking about Mother Wiggs, Kansas City Chiefs versus the Buffalo Bills. They hand the Chiefs their first loss of the season at 30-21. Okay, the exact same message that I had for the Commanders is pretty much the same for the Chief fans out there. First of all, the Bills always beat the Chiefs when it doesn't matter. Wait until the playoffs. Playoffs. Yeah, and then watch the Bills turn into a pumpkin at the stroke of midnight. Yes, the Bills needed this win, and Josh Allen did a great job of playing Patrick Mahomes again. But like I mentioned last week, Coach Andy Reid has no intentions of putting his team through the pressure of a perfect season and still trying to win another Super Bowl. Kansas City will use this loss as fuel, just like the Commanders on all of the sports talk shows earlier today. They're asking, are the Bills the best team in the AFC? Stop it. Come on now, stop it. The Steelers playing great? Stop it. If they still need to score more, it's still Mother Wiggs, Kansas City Chiefs at 9-1. And like I mentioned last week, you got to knock the champ out. And the Bills did yesterday, but I got to see them do it in the playoffs when it matters the most. Josh Allen did a great job of putting his team on his back to get that win. Allen did his best Steve Young imitation with the game-breaking TD run. I was impressed with the Bills because unlike a lot of the other pretenders earlier this year that failed to finish the champions off when they had a chance, I was impressed because while the game was still close, the referees got involved with a terrible pass interference call in the end zone against the Bills to put KC right back in the game. But the Bills won this game because they did what other teams haven't been able to do. That's score touchdowns instead of kicking field goals. The Chiefs' ultimate goals is three-peating, not going undefeated. This game was almost like the preseason for Kansas City. That offensively, they were very vanilla, not wanting to show the Bills anything they'll use against them in the playoffs. Who can forget 13 seconds? The Chiefs beat the Bills in the AFC Championship game with 13 seconds left. Michael Jordan, Mahomes will beat you when it counts, period. Let's get to our next game, which is the Seattle Seahawks versus my San Francisco 49ers. The Seahawks came back to beat my 49ers 20-17 in a critical loss against a divisional rival to fall into last place in the weak NFC West 5-5, tied with Seattle. The 49ers have a lot of key injuries, but we don't make excuses on the Tom the Bomb show. Nobody cares about their injuries. Every team has key injuries. The 49ers' problem is they're getting outscored in the fourth quarter. They have the worst fourth quarter defense in the NFL, and that's a losing formula. The Niners don't have a closer on defense. You might say, well, what about Bosa? He's playing hurt and not getting it done. You got to be able to get off the field on third down. And the 49ers haven't been able to do that in 2024 with really, really bad losses to the Vikings, the Cardinals, the Rams, and the Seahawks, all in the fourth quarter when they were winning, when they had leads. And off-season key holdouts that led to some guys that held out that got hurt during the preseason after missing the preseason. 5-5 sounds about right with that. A remaining brutal schedule. I think the 49ers will miss the playoffs this year after being in the Super Bowl last season. As a Niner fan, we've seen that before. I can't even blame the boy genius. Let's get to our next game. Our next game was the Cincinnati Bengals versus the LA Chargers. Now, Tom the Bomb took the Bengals in this one because I knew it was a must-win for the Bengals or their season basically is a wrap. In the tale of two halves, the Chargers withstood a furious Bengals second half comeback to win 34-27. After showing great character and coming back from the dead in the first half, the Bengals special teams let them down in completing what would have been a great comeback. Those two missed field goals to take the lead was a gut punch that they couldn't recover from. Momentum in football is really in any sport is a real tangible thing. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, great play over the last couple of weeks, just hasn't been enough to get a W for the Bengals. The coaching matters in the NFL more than any other sport. The Bengals defense has been terrible all season, but the lack of not going to your best player in crunch time, and that's a no-no. The Chargers doubled and sometimes even triple covered him, but Jordan, LeBron, Kobe, Steph, they get the last shot. You got to get that ball to Jamar Chase at the end of the game. Cincinnati, if Evan McPherson still has a job next week for the Bengals, I'll be shocked. Jim Harbaugh just keeps winning and finding a way. Our next game is the Green Bay Packers versus the Chicago Bears. The Packers still own the Bears in a close 20-19 win over the Bears. Controversy just seems to follow the Bears and coach Matt Eberflus. Your kicker is 100% from 40 yards and in, and you let almost 30 seconds run off the clock with a timeout and settle for a 46-yard field goal where he makes only 76% of those kicks from the 45-yard and out. As a coach, you have to know this stat well. You say, well, it's only 6 more yards. Well, that's like having a 100-yard wedge shot instead of a 105-yard wedge shot. It makes a difference. It's a confidence thing. I don't miss from 100 yards, but at 105, it's different. It's psychological. Now, the Bears are sending the video that blocked field goal to the NFL because of the violations of blowing up the snapper, which really aren't allowed to do. It kind of gets back to our poll question results, because if that's Mother Wiggs, Kansas City Chiefs, the officials are going to call roughing the center on that field goal tip. But also, like last week, the kicker has to kick the ball higher. And what's worse is the special teams blocking on that field goal attempt was terrible. Do your job. When you hit those guys in their gut, they'll stop raising their hands after firing the offensive coordinator last week. The offense looked better. Caleb Williams played much better, running to move the chains and getting rid of the ball in time. They're still finding ways to lose in Chicago. Tell me something new, right? Captain Obvious, right? Okay, let's move on to our next game. Our next game is the Raiders versus the Dolphins. The Dolphins win 34-19. I'm sorry. Brock Bowers set an NFL rookie tight end with 13 receptions for 126 yards and 1 TD, and it still wasn't enough, as Tua has stabilized the Miami offense to get them back as a high-powered offense. We thought we'd see all season long, but a little bit too late. Let's move on to our next game. We rolling here. We got the Cleveland Browns 14 versus the New Orleans Saints 35. The Saints, Taysom Hill, blowed up fantasy football and the Cleveland Browns single-handedly. Hill had 7 carries for 130 yards and 3 TDs, and he also had 8 receptions for 50 yards. The Cleveland Browns led the NFL. The Cleveland Browns led the NFL in defense last year. Where's the beef? Where's the defense? I mean, Cleveland's defense this year is AWOL. I mean, they're just not showing up. But man, I'm gonna tell you. Okay, coming from the Midwest, something's going on in the Midwest. You got the Bears, you got the Browns, you got the Colts. They aren't getting it done because college football in the Midwest is good, but professional football in the Midwest, well, you got Kansas City, sort of Midwest, but it's just something going on, man. And there's so many different things going on with Cleveland. You got the Deshaun Watson thing. It's just a mess. And that great defense from last year just seems to be gone. That moves us right into our next game. Like I said, the Colts beat the Jets 28-27. Rookie Anthony Richardson outplayed Aaron Rodgers. This is another embarrassing loss for the Jets in 2024. Rodgers is reaping what he's sown. And that's all I really, really want to say about that, because that's all I'm going to really, really say about that. He's reaping what he's sowing, and people don't understand reaping and sowing is a natural law like gravity. Okay, now natural, that means it has to work for everybody, and he's just reaping what he's sowing. Some people might say, well, it's on the wheel. Well, the wheel is turned around on him, and he's pretty much doomed the Jets' whole season. And like I mentioned to you a couple of weeks ago, I think he's ruined his whole reputation as a Hall of Fame player. I think he'll still make the Hall of Fame, but everything he's doing now is just damaging his reputation. Our next game was the Lions roared 52-6 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. This season can't be over soon enough for the Jaguars. The Jacksonville headline says Coach Doug Peterson and GM Trent Baalke are possible casualties. I'm trying to figure out which one of their family members wrote this headline because that's awfully nice. These guys are done. They are so fired. The real question is, are the Lions the best team in the NFL? That's the real question. They're 9-1 with 8 consecutive victories, 644 total yards. Jared Goff had a perfect QB rating of 158 with 0 points. Are they the best team in the NFL? That's the question. Are they the best team in the NFL? You know what? They spent a lot of time on sports talk shows this morning, and almost unanimously, people are saying that the Detroit Lions are the best team, and I could see Detroit Lions and the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl. I could definitely see that game happening. But like I keep saying, man, until you beat the champ is the champ. You're not going to get a decision over the champ because the refs aren't going to let you, just like what Buffalo did this week. If you want to beat Mother Wig's Kansas City Chiefs, you have to score touchdowns instead of kicking field goals. And you got to keep Patrick Mahomes on the bench. And that's what Buffalo did. Josh Allen really, really gets up for Patrick Mahomes. And, I've been hearing this earlier today, and it's really a good point. The Bills haven't beat the Kansas City when it matters, but it hasn't been because of Josh Allen. Josh Allen has had tremendous games against Kansas City. So he's doing everything in his power to be able to get past Mother Wig's Kansas City Chiefs. But we're talking about the Lions, and without a doubt, they're the cream of the crop in the NFC. But are they the best team in football? I like everything they're doing, and I'm actually rooting for the Lions. But come on, man, unless Jordan retires, whatever team Jordan's on, they're the best team, and whichever team Patrick Mahomes on, that's the best team. And I am not a Kansas City fan, but hey, it is what it is. It is what it is. Let's move on to our next game. The Rams sneak past the Patriots 28-22. Drake May had a career day, but fell short to the veteran Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford went 18 for 27 for 295 yards with 4 TDs. My favorite name in all of the NFL, Puka Nacua, I just love that. Puka Nacua chipped in with 7 receptions for 123 yards and a TD, and Cooper Kupp added 6 receptions for 106 yards and 2 Ds as the Rams stopped the Patriots' win streak. Our next game were the Denver Broncos 38 to the Atlanta Falcons 6. As Atlanta never got off the bus, man. They never got off the plane, man. They just didn't show up. They just didn't show up for this one. The Broncos defense was stifling, and rookie Bo Nix has officially served notice that the NFL Rookie of the Year doesn't automatically belong to Washington's Jaden Daniels. Not so fast, my friend. Bo Nix was 28 for 33 for 307 yards with 4 TDs, and I've been feeling all season long that the Falcons have been winning with smoke and mirrors. There's a reason that there's a reason that Kirk Cousins kind of catches some flack because it's like in Showtime when it's needed the most, he just doesn't seem to show up. And they had some Philadelphia, who looks really, really good. Philadelphia lost to the Atlanta Falcons. If you remember, Saquon Barkley had that drop pass on going for 4th down, but they should have lost that game. And then they've beaten the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice. And even though the Atlanta Falcons have beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers twice, the Falcons are not a better football team than Tampa Bay. And you say, well, Tommy Bomb, they beat them twice. I'm telling you, the Atlanta Falcons is not a better football team than the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers is the best 5 or 6 loss team that I've seen in NFL in a long time. I can't even explain to you how they've lost that many games, but it is what it is now. So That's our NFL game. So let's get to tonight's game at 8:15 p.m. on ESPN. We have the Houston Texans taking on the Dallas Cowgirls. Okay, and Tom the Bomb likes the Texans. Come on, I like Texans. Is Dallas going to win another game? Do we really know? Look, I'm taking the Texans tonight, and then after that, they got the up and coming Washington Commanders. It'll be interesting, Cooper Rush is going to be quarterbacking, and I think they should go ahead and break out Trey Lance and see what Trey Lance can do. But hey, man, that's Jerry's world, man. And as Jerry turns, so do the Cowgirls. And it's interesting. Over this weekend, my wife and I went to a magnificent wedding in Mexico, and the bride and her family, and quite a few people from the areas from San Antonio, Texas. Okay, so I spent the last 3 or 4 days with a ton of people from the state of Texas, and it's really good. Now, granted, they are from San Antonio, okay, but I couldn't find. I don't think I talked to one person that told me that they were a Cowboy fan. Now they said they're San Antonio Spurs. That's basketball, right? But most of them said that they like the Texans over the Cowgirls, and they pretty much all had the exact. I mean, at different times, talking to different people, they all had almost the same thing to say: is that the Cowboys aren't going to do anything until Jerry Jones gets out of the way. And I thought this was very, very enlightening coming from quite a big crowd of people from Texas. I know it's San Antonio, but last time I checked, San Antonio is still Texas, right? Yeah, yeah, it's still Texas, And if they truly are America's team, then don't you think they ought to be San Antonio's team? But man, I'm telling you, man, it's almost everybody I talk to. They, when I ask them about the Cowgirls, they just kind of shake their head like, no, man, come on, man, that dude, we can't handle that dude. So let's get into our picks for next week. We rolling on. Coming up, we got the Thursday night game, which is going to be November 21st. We got the Pittsburgh Steelers takes on the Cleveland Browns. Tom the Bomb is definitely taking the Steelers in this game. Hey man, I'm really impressed with the Steelers, man. I mean, and like I told you guys last week, them beating the Ravens, that doesn't shock me because, like I said, they've beaten the Ravens 8 out of 9, 8 out of the last 9 games. And what's really shocking about that is that the Ravens have a better team than the Steelers, but the Steelers have better coaching than the Ravens. And John Harbaugh is a decent coach, but Mike Tomlin is coaching circles around the Baltimore Ravens, man. And this is a winning tradition through and through, from the top all the way down. I mean, if you just talk about stability, we've been talking about leadership, and true leadership is being able to influence people, and that's what Mike Tomlin is doing with the Steelers. And nobody, anybody, quarterbacks in the NFL everybody's looking for a quarterback, and any of the 32 teams could have had Russell Wilson, and none of them really wanted it. And Russ comes into Pittsburgh, and he's just getting W's, man. And man, you just gotta love that defense, how ferocious they are. And man, they just took that game from the Ravens. And I've been listening to the sports stuff earlier today, and people were saying, "Well, I feel like that the Ravens lost this game more than the Steelers won this game." Well, let me tell you the real deal. If you think you can whoop me, and I just punch you in the mouth until your mouth start bleeding, you you didn't let me win. That's what happened to the Ravens this week against the Steelers. Man, they just manned up and just you know. Let's move on to our next game. Our next game is the Minnesota Vikings versus the Chicago Bears. And Tom the Bomb is taking the Vikings. There's and you know what? And the Bears got a lot of talent on their team. And if we can go back to August, if we all remember when Caleb Williams was going to be the number one pick, and they knew they were going to take him, and people were talking about how no rookie quarterback that was the number one pick overall had ever come into a situation that was so good for him. Having great skill positions and running backs and a decent defense. But the one thing they neglected was the offensive line, and we know that like I said, they fired their offensive coordinator last week, and the offense looked much better this week. And Caleb Williams looked better, like we mentioned in the game. He moved around in the pocket. He threw the ball on time. He ran to move the chains. And I think, and this is another interdivision game. So in these interdivision games, like Pittsburgh and the Ravens, the Vikings versus the Bears, their records really don't matter. Okay, so even though the Vikings are 7-2, 7-3, something like that, and the Bears have a losing record, that doesn't mean anything. The Bears can win this game, but Tom Baum is taking the Vikings because bad teams find ways to lose, and good teams find ways to win. And I'm not ready to call the Chicago Bears a good team. I don't even know if I will say the Vikings are a good team, not a great team, but a good team. I think the Vikings are a step above the Atlanta Falcons. I think the Vikings and the Falcons have been winning with smoke and mirrors this year, and they have a great record and they beat some good teams. But when just knowing football the way I do, when I watch the Vikings, there's something that's just making me go, it's like if you taste something and you know what it's supposed to taste like and it's missing an ingredient and you just go, it needs, there's something missing. And that's what I get with the Vikings. There's just something missing. Now the Falcons, they got a lot of stuff in there that they shouldn't have in there. I don't even know what they're trying to make. Our next game is the Alice Cowgirls versus the Washington Commanders. And listen, living here in the DMV, the DMV is Washington D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. It's truly a tri-state area. I live in Maryland, but I can be in D.C. in 10 minutes, and I can be in Virginia in 15 minutes. So it's truly a tri-state area, and this is Dallas week in the DMV, and I can't explain it to you, but you have to be here for Dallas week. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the Cowboys record is. It doesn't matter what the Commanders record is. I remember when I think Dallas was 1-14 or 1-15, and the only team they beat that year were the Redskins. They were the Redskins, and they were the Commanders. The only team they beat was the Redskins. So it just doesn't matter when the Cowboys and the Commanders get together. This is probably one of the biggest and oldest rivalries in the NFL. So, but the Cowgirls are going like this. And the Commanders, even though they've lost 2 in a row, they're on the rise, man. And like Felix was saying, and Nat Wood for that matter, we think that Jalen Daniels is more hurt than what they're letting on, and I believe that too because number one of the things that impressed me in the beginning of the year was his foot speed and how fast and how people just weren't able to catch him. And for the last 2-3 weeks, I've been seeing people run him down, and when you have that kind of injury, and more importantly, to me. We talked about his composure, which I think is his number one asset, but right behind his composure was his accuracy. And the last 2 weeks, for sure, if he's accurate against Pittsburgh, they beat Pittsburgh. If he's accurate against the Eagles, they beat the Eagles. And, with the injury, like Felix was saying, with the injury that he has from the ribs, I think that's affecting his accuracy, So, but even with all that being said, Tom the Bomb likes the Commanders. Who you like, Lori? You like the Commanders or the Cowgirls?
Commanders for
Oh,
sure.
Lori likes the Commanders, but Lori and Troy are Commanders fans. They really really are. Tom the Bomb is the one who's not a Commander fan, but I'm Jaden Daniels. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Our next game is the New England Patriots versus the Miami Dolphins, and Tua being back is making it's so clear that Tua is the most valuable players on the Dolphins team. But he's the quarterback, and that's why that's why Tua makes 55 million. Okay, because the quarterback is such an important position because even though the quarterback plays offense, he affects the defense. The best way. There's a stat in football I like to mention that people don't pay attention to, but this is a stat you want to just really kind of give you some insight. The team whose defense plays the least, that's the team that usually wins. Because, how do you beat Patrick Mahomes? You have to keep him on the bench. How do you keep him on the bench? Your offense has to have a ball control offense and keep the ball and churn out long drives. That's why if the idiot Baltimore Ravens would just give Derrick Henry the ball 25 plus times a game, they would never lose. They would never lose. No, they never lose. Okay, but it's just not going to happen because they want to run that offense through Lamar Jackson, and I just don't understand it. It's just you got to get that new book. It's a bestseller, Football for Dummies. You got to go out and get it. The Patriots play hard every week. Their new head coach has done a phenomenal job, and because their record is just not great, uh, take my word, he's doing a phenomenal job. The Patriots are playing hard every week. They've now turned it over to Drake May, and Drake May is progressing. And like I've talked about it, I love the way they did. Drake May was their number one pick, but they didn't just throw him into the starting lineup. They had a veteran quarterback, and then once the season, they got to the point where it's like, well, we really aren't going to do something. So now let's get the young man some time, and it's working out. And Drake May looks like he's going to be a rising star coming up. So the Patriots play hard, but Tua makes the difference in Miami. So we're going to go with the Miami Dolphins on this one. Our next game is Mother Wiggs Kansas City Chiefs versus the Carolina Panthers, and that's a bye. That's the bye. Look. If the Chiefs lose this game to the Carolina Panthers, then everyone should stop watching NFL football. That's just it. There's no way that guys said they're professionals, and on any given Sunday, not this upcoming Sunday, the Carolina Panthers cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs, especially coming off a loss to the Buffalo Bills. Like I told you, Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid is going to take this loss as fuel. This is, and I'm not saying, like I said, I'm not saying that the Chiefs tanked this game because they didn't, but I watched this game and Kansas City was very, very vanilla. It's like in the preseason. In the preseason, teams are just running what you call base packages. They aren't showing you any of their shifts. They aren't showing you any because they don't want to tip their hand to what they're going to do in the regular season. So they got a good idea that they're going to run into the Buffalo Bills again in the playoffs. So the Chiefs weren't trying to show Buffalo nothing that they didn't want them to see when the playoff time. And don't get me wrong, Buffalo played well and they deserved to win. But after losing, and now they got the Carolina Panthers, Patrick Mahomes maybe only played 2 quarters. That it just is what it is. Take the Chiefs, of course. Then we got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus the New York G-Men. Let's talk about this game real quick. The Giants have benched Danny Dimes. After giving this guy, let me put this in perspective. The Cowgirls didn't want to give Dak Prescott $40 million. The Giants gave Daniel Jones $40 million, but they wouldn't pay Saquon Barkley. Will somebody for Christmas please send the New York Giants that same book that they need in Baltimore, Football for Dummies? Okay, I mean, come on, man. I mean, they gave Daniel Jones $40 million, but they wouldn't give it to Saquon Barkley. And then let me show you how really dumb this organization is. They let him go to an in-division rival, the Philadelphia Eagles. So Saquon can show up twice a year and scuff your head in the sand. I mean, are you kidding me? That guy knows all your weaknesses. He's motivated. You were supposed to trade Saquon Barkley to Siberia. Saquon Barkley was supposed to be playing for a team in Russia. How you gonna let him go to the Philadelphia Eagles? Man, the Eagles look good with Saquon, man. And as crazy as the Eagles coach is, Nick Sirianni, he's figuring it out. Hey, how about we just give it to Saquon? What are we gonna do in the next play? How about we give it to Saquon? What are we gonna do in the next play? How about we give it to Saquon? There it is, man. Like I mentioned to you, the Buccaneers are the best six-loss team. They may be the best six-loss team I've ever seen. The Bucks should roll the Giants, even though the Giants have a better defense than what people think. Our next game is the Detroit Lions versus the Baltimore Colts. We back in the Midwest again, and hey, people think the Detroit Lions are the best team in all of football. So surely, surely they should roll the Indianapolis Colts. So we're taking the Lions on this one, right, Lori?
Yes.
Yes, Lori says yes. Okay. Our next game is the Denver Broncos versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, the Denver Broncos are much, 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 much better team than the Las Vegas Raiders. But again, this is an interdivision game. And when these teams meet into the interdivision, they know each other so well that their records don't really matter. Tom the Bomb is going to take the Broncos, but you guys have to keep in mind, one of the games that the Baltimore Ravens lost this year was to the Las Vegas Raiders. Okay. So when they say on any given Sunday, sometimes that's true, but in particularly with these interdivision games. So even though Tom the Bomb is taking the Broncos, the Raiders always play the Broncos hard. A couple of years ago, the Raiders beat the Mother Wigs Kansas City Chiefs, and then they have no business beating them. But that's an interdivision game, and it happens. Our next game is the Arizona Cardinals versus the Seattle Seahawks, and this should be interesting too because um, the Arizona Cardinals are sitting in first place in the NFC West, the weak NFC West, where my beloved 49ers are in last place, tied with the Seahawks at 5-5. And I just mentioned earlier that I don't know if the Niners are going to make the playoffs, but the only way that they can make the playoffs is if they win their division. So they're not out of it because they can still win their division, even though, you can go 9-7 and win your division, but because what your record is in the division is what's important. So they still got to play the Arizona Cardinals again. So this game for the Cardinals and the Seahawks is a big, big game. It's a must win for the Seahawks. But if the Arizona Cardinals can win this game, they can really, really start to separate themselves from the rest of the pack. And Tom the Bomb likes the Arizona Cardinals. I like what they're doing. I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals in this one. Our next game is by San Francisco 49ers versus the Green Bay Packers. And stop the presses. Tom the Bomb is actually going to take the Green Bay Packers over his beloved San Francisco 49. Are you kidding me? The sky is falling. The sky is falling. It hit me in the head. Yes, Tom the Bomb is actually picking against his beloved 49ers because we got to give it to you straight. You got to pick with your head and not your heart. And I'll be rooting very heavily for my San Francisco 49ers. But take the Packers in this one, man. The Packers are a better team than 49ers right now. And like I said, they've got the worst fourth quarter defense in all of the NFL. And every game that they've lost this year, they're 5-5. And in all 5 of those losses, they were winning in the fourth quarter. You say, which it sounds crazy, but the 49ers could be 10-0. I mean, come on. The 5 games that you lost, you were winning in the fourth quarter. And like I said, they've had a ton of injuries. But we're not making excuses. But Tom the Bomb is going to take the Green Bay Packers over his beloved 49ers. Our next game is the Philadelphia Eagles versus the LA Rams. The Rams are better than people think they are, even though they have a terrible 5-5 record, just like the 49ers and the Seahawks. It's a terrible division. But they have a good football team. But the Eagles and the Detroit Lions look like the cream of the crop in the NFC East. And one of the questions that was asked earlier today is are the Eagles the only team that can beat the Detroit Lions? Maybe. I like the Eagles in this one. We're going to take the Eagles over the Rams. And then that just takes us to our Monday night game, which is the Baltimore Ravens versus the Chargers. And the Ravens are a hard team to figure out. They really are. They're a hard team to figure out because if they just do what they're supposed to do, they're unbeatable. But I listened to Lamar Jackson after the loss against the Steelers, and I didn't like that. I felt like he was making excuses, you know. And when you win, you win. On the Tom the Bomb show, we talk about how you win and lose in life really, really matters. And I watched the press conference, and I felt like Lamar was making excuses. He talked about the missed field goals, the 2 missed field goals, and yes, If you lose 16-18 and you miss 2 field goals, well, yeah, you probably should have won the game. But, the same way that Josh Allen took Mother Wiggs' Kansas City Chiefs by the throat and said, we are not losing this game. That's what Lamar's got to do with the Steelers, okay? And I think that the Chargers could be a better team than the Steelers. The Chargers don't have the defense that the Steelers have, but the Steelers don't have the offense that the Chargers have. So I think this week for the Ravens is going to be a tougher game than it was with the Steelers. But I'm going to go with the Ravens only because, it's like they go, okay, we win. We gave it to Derrick Henry 20 plus times. We won. Then we're going to give it to him 13 times. Then we lose. So this is the week where they go, man, we lost last week. We only gave it to him 13 times. So let's give him about 800 carries against the Chargers. And because of that, I'm going to go with the Ravens. And you say, well, in that game against the Steelers did a great job of putting 8 men in the box and daring the Ravens to throw the ball because they just said, you are not going to run on us. Okay. But here's the deal with Derrick Henry. He had 13 carries for 63 yards, something like that. But here's the thing. We talked about those last 10 carries for Saquon. And like I said, Derrick Henry for the last 5 years has led the NFL in yards in the fourth quarter. Man, when that 6'4", 260 pound, 4-4, 4-3 running back starts pounding you, you can stop him for 3 quarters, man. But in the fourth quarter, your legs get heavy and you get tired. And that's why, and if I'm a big Derrick Henry fan, and I've seen Derrick Henry break off 80 and 90-yard touchdown runs in the fourth quarter. And that's because the other guys are getting tired and he's like a diesel. It's like the more carries he gets, the stronger and faster he gets. So, if the Ravens just feed that guy, he will take them to a Super Bowl. But it's not going to happen as long as you keep trying to run your offense through Lamar Jackson. Okay, I'm going to get off the Ravens. I'm going to take the Ravens over the Chargers only because I think they're going to give the ball, like I said, to Derrick Henry 800 times. Okay. Yeah, Derrick Henry's going to rush for 1,000 yards in one game. Hey, gang, that's our show for this evening. We didn't have a trivia question. Like I said, we got our poll question: are the Lions the best team in the NFL? Or you guys can let us know. Hey, listen, don't forget to check out our website at www.tomthebombsports.com, and you can contact us by email at info@tomthebombsports.com. Hey, check us out on Facebook. Do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe. Hey, for dynamic, in-depth sports analysis and highlights for sports in the DMV and more, check out the Washington Sports Den Thursdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on WBGR with my main man, Felix Bassi, man. Hey, man, time flies when you're having fun. We're out of time here, but we sure do thank you for spending your time with us. Listen, may the gates of heaven open and pour an abundance of blessings down on you where there won't be room enough to contain it. Remember, if you want it, you got to confess it with your mouth and believe it in your heart that Jesus died on the cross and that he rose on the third day, not a Thursday, just for you. Remember, darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. And hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. God bless you. We'll see you on this same bat time, on this same bat station. You guys have a good evening. Enjoy the game tonight. And we love you guys. We just want to give a shout out to Roger and Sonali. We just wish you guys the best. What a fabulous, fabulous wedding over the weekend. We enjoyed ourselves so much. It was truly a blessing to be there. We want to say good night now. You guys take care. God bless you.